everybody seems to be interested in the idea of tantric sex, right? But I feel that, there are a lot of misconceptions around it. Some people presume it's a position. Can you help us demystify what is it all about? We are at the biggest gathering of book lovers, JLF 2023, and I have with me the author of Kama Traditions, Alka Pande. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Mohit.
From being the land of Kama Sutra, right, to it being a taboo subject today, what really went wrong in this story?
Well, that will take a lifetime to answer. But yes, it is taboo today. I think perhaps in my reading it has something to do with modernity and also the fact that Victorian prudery had a great impact on us because we were part of the colonized people run by the British Empire, where Victorian prudery to a large extent was also spreading to its colonies. We were very evolved as ancients. We were equally pleasure-seeking and, talking of the beauty of life during the Mughal period as well. You had a lot of pleasure albums which were being done. And I would perhaps like to have these two key things, modernity and the Victorian prudery. We just put a tab on everything and, kind of translated the whole thing of the beauty and the aesthetics of erotic into something which was almost pornography, and the translation was very wrong.
Okay. So you mean to say that, we were a lot more progressive society back then?
Well, I think I wouldn't want to say progressive. We are still a progressive society. I would like to use the word more evolved.
Okay. Sex toys are a modern day invention, or in your research did they exist back then also when the Kama Sutra was perhaps written?
Sex toys, of course. Kama Sutra consists of 7 books. And the last book is on aphrodisiacs.
Okay.
So the aphrodisiacs, what does it imply? It implies a lot of things. But would there be sex toys in the way they are manufactured in Hong Kong and China and all these? I don't know about that. But definitely there were things where it is said, how do you enlarge the penis? How do you accentuate pleasure? Why are aphrodisiacs used? So it was very much part of the 7 books of the Kama Sutra.
Ma'am, when I speak to, say, my friends, family, right, everybody seems to be interested in the idea of tantric sex, right? But I feel that, there are a lot of misconceptions around it. Some people presume it's a position. Can you help us demystify what is it all about?
So, I think that's a very pertinent question. And I'd like to say Tantra and Tantricism is associated with sex. It is because the body is very important in the religion or the cult of Tantra. But I would not like to, put it as a thing of only sex and sexual prowess. I think people must understand Tantra is very much not understood by people. And I think the ignorance of the understanding of Tantra leads to such notions. It's also the ignorance of the understanding of Kama Sutra which leads to it turning into a taboo subject. Because if you see the first chapter of the Kama Sutra, it is about dharma, artha, kama and moksha. So what is an ethical life? The 4 ashrams of life. Then artha, how do you earn ethically? Third is kama, pleasure. How do you live a life of pleasure? And it also is very inclusive. It includes what you call the LGBTQ today, in the inclusion of the Tritiya gender. And then only can you transcend if you've not enjoyed the pleasures of life for which man was created. So the spiritual and the erotic go hand in hand with the Kama traditions of the country. It goes hand in hand. All our Sanskrit poetry, whether it is written by Dandin, whether it is written the Mano Ullasa, which talks of the pleasure gardens, which I've mentioned in my book called Kama al Fresco. All this is mentioned in my books, and I'm actually celebrating the beauty of life, living pleasure vilas.
In today's time, people seem to be swiping left, right and center. They seem to be having easy access to partners, right? So do you think having easy access enhances the pleasure or takes away from it?
you're talking to a dinosaur. I come from a different culture. I come from a time and age when just looking to each other gave you so much pleasure. Today, it's like instant gratification. It's like your 2-minute noodle. You have access to a lot of, partners, whether it is Kinder, whether it's apps. And I think the whole thing of enjoying the beauty of life, it's like music. You look at the music of the 60s, you look at the music of Naushad, and you look at the music of today with synthesizers, with, where is the beauty of the handmade instrument which played melody, the flute, everything is on digital music. You can create your own music, you create your own pleasure. So for me, I think, and I'm not trying to be old, saying that only the past was beautiful, but I think the culture in which I grew up, where there was mutual respect, now it's about power.
Okay.
Male power, female power. The woman is more, she's empowered because she can choose who she sleeps with. I'm not talking of power. I'm talking of the beauty of the male-female relationship, where in the Kama Sutra it is said, a woman should be asked. There was also a chapter where how do you steal another man's wife? It is also about consent. So, there was a great beauty of mutual respect. Now it's about mutual power. So that is the difference I see.
Okay. Ma'am, if you look at the youngsters of today, right, they seem to be having a lot more open and progressive attitude when it comes to sex, right? But the oldies, the older generation, they still seem to be a bit like, icky about it. What can we possibly do to, impart sex education to the oldies of India today?
I won't agree with you, Mohit. The oldies are not icky about it. I'm an oldie. What do they do in their bedroom? How do they talk? And as you grow older, how comfortable you become with your partner. It's all to do with chemistry. So as an oldie, I have a great relationship with my husband. We are very, comfortable with each other. It also depends. In India, it's about class, caste. It's a very complex landscape in India. When you are talking of the young people, you're talking of the metropolitan young. So the metropolitan young are exposed to, or even any young in the country, because you have the phone and you're looking at everything. So I don't know if I believe the way the youngsters are doing or the icky old people, because I think karma, pleasure, vilas is a lot to do with who you are, what you've read, how evolved you are. So this wham, bang, thank you ma'am, changing partners constantly, I don't know if it works.
Okay. Ma'am, one of your book actually talks about the illicit aspect of pleasure, right? What are your 2 bits on adultery?
Anything illicit is more challenging, more seductive. Illicit love is always more seductive than when you have the consent and sanctions to have love. So illicit is always more exciting.
Ma'am, we'll wrap this interview with one last question. What are your 5 tips to any youngsters who are looking out to explore themselves?
1, to be comfortable with themselves and their body. 2, to respect the other. If you are a man, you must respect the woman. And if you're a woman, you must not look at the man as you Tarzan, me Jane. Equality. The 3rd would be take pride in the way you dress, look good. I believe a lot in the Shringar. Vishnu, for me, is the epitome of Shringar. 4th is to not feel embarrassed if you have desires, because there is a time for every person to have desire. And as I said, you have to also not be, a touch me not. So if it is a woman and she likes a man, she can be the first mover.
Yeah. Why
That's
not?
all. Some men also like to be hunted.
True. I think let's end this interview on such a progressive note. This was a really fun conversation. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Mohit from Red FM. Bajaate Raho.
Bajaate Raho. 93.5 Red FM. Bajaate Raho.